Hello and welcome to the ViaCAD review. My name is Ed March and I'm going to take a look at Punch CAD software that makes ViaCAD. I have ViaCAD 12 2D/3D. It lists for $199. It has a lot more features than some of the more expensive programs, and you can even find discounts because I paid less than $199 for it. So it pays to shop around. Let me take a look at some of the features that I like. And first, let me take a look at some of the other software I looked at. If money was no object, I would probably choose Rhino 3D for almost $1,000. $875 is the best street price I found. I do shop around. AutoCAD, of course, is the leader out there along with SolidWorks. I have not tried SolidWorks. AutoCAD seems to show its age with some of the alias commands. Very good for 2D, a little bit better on 2D than 3D maybe, I would say. I'm not into subscription software, paying year for the same stuff. And IntelliCAD is a knockoff that has an AutoCAD clone that is sold by many different companies, and they all are basically the same thing. They kind of roll their own little package for you. The cheapest is $299 with some pretty bad tech support. So I passed on that. And then we have FreeCAD, which they say does almost everything SolidWorks does, but the frustration level is very high on that. The other web-based online programs, no thanks. I want to run code on my PC and have my STL files for my 3D printer on my hard disk. So one of the things I like about it is there's a lot of features for the money. One of the things I don't like about it is they have these ribbons that you can tear off like that. Why don't they make ribbons like everybody else makes ribbons on the file menu? And this is a little funky here, but I can live with that. We'll show you some simple subtraction and 2D extrusion things. But first, I'm going to show you what I did with my keystrokes, because I recommend that you go over here and set your shortcut keystrokes. Okay, these are my shortcuts. And you can see I added things wherever I could. M for mirror, F6, F7, F8 to dynamically move around. Don't move your part, move your view. So let's start with a simple box. I'm going to show you I can hit the pound sign because that looks like a cube to me. The @ sign looks like a sphere, and the exclamation point looks like a cylinder. So I chose those. So we go with a box. We can make one that's 4 by 4 by 1 inch high. Okay, I'll hit F6 to pan around. I'll hit F7 to move around, and you can see that that's 1 inch high. And then F8, we can zoom in and out with the scroll wheel. Generally, I use my brackets to scroll in and out. It's a little more precise. I tend to like that. And you can hit D to go back to the main display as you were before. You can hit S. S and D are very common keys, along with Alt 1, 2, and 3. And the other thing that you cannot assign a key to, which is very handy, is this viewport layout. I really like to have the third views like that. So that helps where you're going to put things. And I sometimes don't like to see the grid because you think it's an object over there, so I can shut off the grid. But let me show you keystrokes that I recommend you setting. I don't know how to transfer my keystrokes to you in one simple file, but these are the keystrokes that I have signed, and I'll link this PDF there. So one of the big things I use a lot is F11 and F12 for import. F11 is in, F12 is out. Just kind of makes sense. The gripper, turning it on and off, and the uniform scale U. I don't use the layers too much. I use the construction lines and delete construction lines. Unfortunately, you can only assign uppercase and lowercase, and then you cannot assign modifiers such as Shift, Control, or Alt to keys like F2, 3, 4 function keys or anything like that. So the other thing I use a lot is minus for subtracting, and plus for adding, and equals for intersection. And then these are some of the shapes. The underscore is a slab. One confusing thing about all these periods that they use is I actually do use a period, and that period right here is for a point. So it would be nice if they would have put spaces between the periods and then a space and then the F3 and the period, so it would be that you would know the period is the key. And then the comma is the other one. So you can put points along the curve, comma, and points right on there. So let's go back into ViaCAD here, and let's get our main view on a S command here, and I will F6 to move this up. I will make a cylinder by pressing, that was an F2 key, and then I will make the cylinder with the exclamation point, and I will start it here, go down into there, and as you can see, it's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So it's also not lined up. That's where views like this really help. So I hit F2 in this view, and I can just pull the red marker and drag it. Now, one of the nice things about ViaCAD is they give you this, they call IntelliSense or some, I don't remember exactly what they call it, but it allows you to line up on reference points. So when you're here, you can easily put this in the middle. And you can put the cone in the middle too. It'll have a snap feeling, but anyway, it doesn't really matter where I put it. I'm just gonna show you for now that we're gonna take and hit the minus sign. And so we got to subtract solid. We subtracting from this, and we subtract that, and then we subtract this. If I click outside of this area, this could be the only one. If I click in here, it's not sure, you know, which one I want. So click there, and you have a hole. Very easy to make holes. One of the other things to do, we'll close this drawing, start with a new drawing, and go into 2D mode, which is F1. F1 goes into 2D, yes. So many times you want to make something with a series of lines. And then go back to your starting point, hit escape, and unfortunately it kind of leaves that. There's some little bugs in ViaCAD which I'm not crazy about, but if you hit like an F2 and an F1, F2 again, F3, you'll get those lines out. I can hit F5, so we can, we should be able to scroll this. Come on, oh, not F5, I'm sorry, F6, pan over, and then we're going to extrude this into a 3D. So we hit capital E for their solid extrude, and I highlight the whole thing, and the distance of how much I'm extruding would be a ½ inch or quarter inch rather. So let's make this a ½ inch. And now we can hit F7 so we can actually turn it around and see that this made our solid little piece. Okay. So let's get rid of that. Make a new file again. Go into 2D mode. And let's do something a little more creative with some arcs. Go here and make another one to there. And make a line, hit L. Go to the endpoint. Go to the endpoint. Go to this endpoint. Go to that. And we can see if that's extrudable really quickly, because if you don't match your points up, you've got to go back into 3D mode, hit F1. Doesn't ask you to go into 3D mode, just does it, which is nice. Oops, didn't highlight the whole thing. And so there's no problems there. We're going to keep this in 2D mode, and we're going to make a hole in it, a fancy hole. A couple of them. We're going to put F2 in here, move that over to there, and we're going to hit capital E for extrude. Oops. Gotta go a little higher each time, and we'll make this 4 inches thick. Okay, hit F7 to pan around, and you can see how thick that is. And if I wanted to, I could make a cylinder. Let's hit F6 and pan this over. And let's make a hole in here. Let's see, I guess we'll do the cylinder hole. And I will take this, hit F3. Choose that part and rotate this by one of these rotate commands here. And say, okay, I probably want that to be 45 degrees. I'll just type in 45. And then we'll rotate it this way. Probably want that to be 90. We'll go into our view. And we'll move this and that's probably an interesting way to subtract them. So we'll do that, hit the subtract. Sometimes it doesn't delete the piece always. Do that and do that. But if I take and select this and just delete it, you can see that it actually did the subtraction here. So there's a few little quirky things. One is with the subtract. A lot of times it stays there. I don't know if it's my graphics card or what the deal is. But I will say all of these programs have crashed, even Rhino, AutoCAD. I believe it's my NVIDIA, or my, what do I have? I have an AMD RX 570 graphics card, and I think that's what's crashing it. So that's just a good simple little education here. Now, one of the things that you cannot do is text. So I'm going to show you a program that I wrote called Professor Vector. This is Professor Vector. This is written by me. And it'll generate DX. That's supposed to be DXF files. Sorry about that. This will generate DXF files. So if you wanted to say Made in America, you could choose whatever font you like. Maybe you could choose one of those. The size doesn't matter because you're actually picking size and whatever these units are, width and height. So that would be, save it as a DXF, made in USA. We also have other things that you can draw arcs, anywhere from any starting angle to any ending angle, flange, whether you need the tab, without the tab, the length, the width of the tab. Number of holes, 0, 1, 2, 3. We can make gears. We can make a heart. Starting angles. The radius. The height factors, you can mess around with that. N-gons. Again, you could make it 360, so indistinguishable from a circle. The famous optical illusion triangle, plates with holes, different corners. You can have inverted holes, no holes if you want to make plaques for CNC machines, spirals with many different options on that. Stars, phasing on the star. And of course text, weaving patterns, whatever you want to do with these. Swap them back and forth. And the yin-yang, and nested inside yin-yangs, of course. So yeah, the whole thing is $12 from BMT Micro. So $11.95, and you can enjoy. So here's what I wish they would do in ViaCAD. I wish they'd get rid of these goofy tear-off ribbons and icon panels and go with normal dockable ribbons. I wish that the shortcut keys that you set the shortcut key to, like a 3-point key, or like you can, I wish I could do an Alt E, but I can't. I can do an E or a capital E, and I can do an F3, F4. I'm not sure why it won't let me assign those. So if they would do all the keys, and then there's some inconsistencies when you do an F11 and you hit on the import, if you hit return, it does import the files. If you do an F12 and hit return, there's some dialog boxes that do not take the return key. This is my doing. I got some power toys loaded for the cursor, but The tutorials are okay. The tech support is fantastic, very good. I love the tech support people. Text is for 2D dimensioning things if you wanted to draw a lot of 2D and dimension stuff. And I do like the blended and the chamfer edges. So if I want to chamfer an edge, half is too much. Let's go with 0.12. And I can just click on this edge right here. And notice how nice. I use that all the time for 3D printing. So let's go back to the chamfered edge. Click on those. So you can do some nice nice stuff with this. So that's my review of ViaCAD. One of the other nice things, they import almost everything. ViaCAD 3MF files, which I think are very important. You can put JPEGs and pictures in the background and you can trace over them. They have their own spline thing, which I'm not sure if that's a ViaCAD thing or what that is. They import what they export. Really nice set of export and import features. So good job, ViaCAD. Again, compared to what else there's out there, I think it's a really good value for the money. So thanks for watching.